Welcome, readers, to another episode of the Bougie Book Pod. I believe we are on episode number 5, Lord willing. This is where we get together. We talk about our most recent reads. We analyze, overanalyze, deep dive, and just gab about our favorite books. Recently, I had a couple people ask me the purpose of our podcast. And I was a little thrown off by it because it was just like I wanted to do something fun with a friend and talk about books that I love. And I kind of want it to feel like you're in a book club.
Yeah.
You know, we're just gabbing, and hopefully at some point people respond and send us some of their thoughts. Because somebody had asked me, like, are you supposed to tell us about the book and then I don't read it? And I was like, no, absolutely not. I would never want to have someone not read it. Because, I just heard you talk about it, so that's good enough.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just felt like I needed to make that clarification. It's just, talking about a book. Yeah, we do spoilers, but
that's what my sister apparently said to my mom. She said something like, oh, I have to actually read the book before because I went to put it on and they were talking about it. And I was like, yeah, there's spoilers. And then I was like, especially with mystery and fantasy too, it's kind of hard to dive into it too much without spoilers.
Because those are the fun parts.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the part that you want to kind of analyze and break down and just have fun with it. So please read these books and then give us your feedback and give us recommendations. We've had a couple, so they're coming. And that's that.
Yeah, so
introduction, I guess.
We went back to mystery for this one.
Yes.
Which honestly, not sure how to pronounce her name, so I told myself I was going to look it up. Did you? Okay, good.
Yes, it's Gilly.
Okay. Gilly MacMillon, I'm assuming MacMillon, and The Manor House. So it's already kind of a spooky cover, but I had read a couple of her books. I don't know about you, but I had read a few.
Have you? No, this was my first.
I didn't realize it, honestly, and then I looked on my shelf, and I was like, oh, that's right.
Oh, okay, yeah. I actually got this book for Christmas from my mom, which was very exciting. And so this time I prepared a little something and I wrote a summary instead of just kind of going off the top of my head, because the last episode I felt very wonky. So
yeah,
it was fun, but I felt wonky. So what I wrote here is The Manor House by Gilly MacMillon starts off strong. It is set in a river town in Wales, England, where we meet Nicole and learn how she and her husband had recently won the lottery and were able to buy a piece of land on a private peninsula, remodeling the property from the ground up in an ultra-modern fashion into what they call the glass house. But the luck stops there in the first few pages as Nicole arrives home to the unnerving sound of opera music blasting throughout the house's speakers and no sign of her husband, Tom. This part really creeped me out. It was like,
the opera for me, that was so intentional, but the opera for me just blaring, and you're just picturing her going through this,
It's the juxtaposition of probably beautiful music, but you have this unnerving, creepy feeling.
It's like that slow-mo in shows and movies, and they play opera music in the background, and all this stuff is happening, and it's chaos, but it's opera. That's what I was picturing.
Totally. So finally, once she gets to her bedroom balcony and stops to admire the view above her pool and vast property, she sees her husband, Tom, floating face down in the pool. And so from there, the book jumps from several perspectives and periods of time. So we've got Nicole, her husband, Tom, her neighbors, Sasha and Ollie, who live in the manor house next door and from whom they bought the property to build the glass house. We'll explain that later.
Yeah.
Kitty, who's the maid at the manor house, the detective working the case, as Tom's death raises suspicion of murder and not just an accident, because, of course, what would this book be without that? And the journal entries of a woman named Anna, who appears to be the original owner of the manor house.
And Anna's perspective is the one we get in the from the past.
Yes, and it's straight out in the beginning, and you're kind of wondering what is happening here.
Yeah.
Why are we hearing from her?
Yeah, why is this relevant?
Exactly. So in the story, you get to play detective with absolutely no stakes, since you, the reader, are safe on your couch or under your blanket or listening to a podcast. But still, it's a fun ride. And even though the characters aren't real, you do begin to care about some of them. You loathe others, and you wonder about the rest. I think it's a story that is a good psychological thriller, but one that touches upon themes of taking back your power, making your own luck. Again, here's vigilante justice.
I know, yeah.
The fact that everyone has secrets or sides to them that they'd rather not let come to light, and that when given the chance for something better, people can or will do questionable things to attain it.
Yeah.
So, where do we begin?
So, back to that opera scene. That's where it sets off from Nicole's point of view. And one thing that's very interesting is you have to understand also this house, this modern house, is very tech savvy. So she comes home. She's supposed to be able to get in this house really easily. There's like a key. It recognizes her face, all this, high tech stuff. And it's like glitching and it's not working. And then the opera's blasting and she's like, turn off the music, like yelling at the house. It's like, I don't know about you, but I grew up in the time of like Disney Channel having the movies play at 8:00, and there was this house, and I can't remember what it's called. It was like Smart House or whatever, and it was like a Disney Channel movie about this like smart house gone bad. And this was what I was getting in the beginning. I was like, oh my god, is this the house?
That's funny.
But the interesting thing with that is after she finds Tom, she, with all the technology, all the cell phones, she does not call the police.
No.
She runs straight into the arms of Sasha and Ollie, who are the couple that are living in the Manor House, which sounds like next door, but like definitely a drive. Like you see her coming, that type of thing. And that's when we meet Sasha and Ollie, who I don't like anything about them.
No, from the very beginning, you don't like them.
Especially Ollie.
Yeah.
He is just like, I just picture him in like my little quarter zip button, or more like a button, and I'm writing, don't disturb my peace. I'm onto something great.
I think I would imagine him wearing like vests.
Yes. Yeah, so he's a writer, but like has published nothing at this point.
Absolutely nothing.
So he's just like, oh my god, what is happening, crazy ladies down here? And then we have Sasha, who is a yoga teacher. She's very like, organic, all of this stuff. And she's not like, you're not getting the worst vibe like Ollie, but she's definitely coming off in a weird way for a yoga teacher who deals with people and like channeling and all this stuff. She's not arms wide open, welcoming type of vibe.
No, she gives off cold vibes.
So what happens is once they get there, or once Nicole gets there, they leave Nicole with Kitty, the maid. Mm-hmm. Kitty's going to take care of Nicole. The two of them, Ollie takes off to go try to get Tom out of the water because poor guy's still floating there.
Oh.
And yeah, he just is there. And so Ollie goes first, and then Sasha, I think, kind of realizes like he's probably not going to be able to pull this man out of the water, like dead weight, literally.
Yeah. And they also described Tom as like being a bigger dude.
Yeah, and then you've got Ollie's like
scrawny.
Yeah. So then Sasha runs over there. The two of them pull his body out, and Nicole's just left sobbing hysterically with Kitty, who is just quiet little Kitty who's the maid, and you're not supposed to know she's there, and she doesn't really speak up or anything. And Nicole from the start, like, you really do believe her. She had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
She was at a little country fair looking at sheep because she loves sheep. Yeah. And so precious of her. And she's just really like, obviously the police are going to assume suspect number one is always the significant other, but you really do feel for her. She had nothing to do with this. She has no idea. It's just, poor thing is just hysterical.
Yeah, and she genuinely believes it's an accident. Like, she doesn't even think that something untoward would ever happen.
She kind of gives the vibe that, like, you wonder about her because you don't think she assumes bad in anyone, in anything.
Yeah.
Maybe you learn a little bit more. But so once police get there, that's when obviously, okay, he didn't just fall and something happened. They do find the bump on his head to suggest there was not a brain injury, but probably a traumatic brain injury, honestly, what you learn. They find a business card in his pocket for Sadie's massages.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
I just remember the Sadie name.
Yes. phone's not working. There's 2 coffee mugs. One's got lipstick on it. Like, there's just all these weird factors. And that's when the police start to piece it together. Like, this also wasn't an accident. So the crazy thing is, we've got this ultra modern house, and the security footage and everything was not working that day, which they make a point to tell you how glitchy it had been. Like, they really struggled with it. But for being such a safe modern house, they have nothing to go off of.
No, there's no footage. There's absolutely nothing. There's no codes that were broken, nothing.
And at this point, this is when we get thrown into Anna's journal. And we start to learn about Anna, who is this widow. And she's living in the Manor House. She's this widow. Kitty's there, the maid. And Anna cannot put one foot in front of the other to get out of bed, to brush her hair, to eat, to just get past her husband's death. And Kitty finally is like, girlfriend, you need to get your life together. I'm going to send you to this yoga teacher. Go see her. She's great. She'll help you. And then that's when Anna and Sasha overlap. So that's where you kind of like, okay, maybe there's something here. So she goes to Sasha's yoga class. And Sasha is like, oh my goodness, come get coffee with me after. I love to know my people. And like, as someone who also does like workout classes, if my instructor was like, get coffee with me after, I'd be like,
Why?
Exactly. Like, I come to your class for a workout, but you know, Anna was vulnerable.
Yeah.
She had no one.
And
I didn't like Anna from her journal, and I feel for her afterwards, but in the beginning, I was just like, honey.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a lot of red flags.
Yes.
But I think, I wouldn't say I didn't like her, but you're reading it from the perspective of someone who you would think has it more together. That wouldn't fall for something like that.
Exactly.
So it's hard when you're reading and you're just like, how do you not know that she's not doing this with anybody else? But she's just so desperate. And it's also because she talks about how like she's always been kind of different and introverted and really always relied on the husband. She kind of lost a lot of friends along the way. She was always very insecure about like if people liked her or not. So she's looking at this girl, Sasha, as this opportunity to get a life back. Yeah. And so I think she may have noticed the red flags, but she wanted friendship so badly. That she's like, I'm just gonna ignore that one.
Yeah. So it's interesting because it's also her journal. So we're not getting a third person point of view in their interactions.
And it's all her emotions.
So we get that. And, you know, she and Sasha grow in this relationship, and Sasha is trying to, what Anna thinks is help her get out of her slump. You know, this is what you need to do. She slowly but surely kind of starts not advising Anna, but like directing Anna and telling Anna this is what you need to do. Yeah. And it kind of takes this shift of Sasha is controlling what Anna needs to do, and Anna is eating everything up because they built this relationship and she is so vulnerable and all this stuff happens. And then we start to learn even more, and she meets Ollie, the boyfriend, and Anna like has this weird crush on him. It's really it's like mimic the sound that you just made. Which was really interesting because there's definitely an age gap there, and I couldn't really piece together a massive age gap, but she gets this crush on Ollie, and all of a sudden Anna's life is just, every decision it feels like she makes has to be approved or 100%. Suggested by Sasha.
And if she does something that they were like, you shouldn't do that, and she does it anyway, then they ice her out.
Yep.
Like, oh, well, you know what? You said you wanted help. We're not going to help you.
You're not going to listen to us. So.
Yes, and she gets so nervous. Like, I don't want to lose them. I'm so sorry. I mean, it's really sad.
Yeah, so every time Anna's journal entry came up, I was like, oh, no.
What else?
And then you just kind of like, Kitty suggested this. I kind of thought I trusted you, Kitty.
Yep.
So that's just an interesting little piece there. But moving forward, Tom's investigation, they're not making any leads. They can't find Sadie, this massage person. They can't figure out who would have a vendetta out against Tom. They didn't go public when they won the lottery. Mm-mm. So people don't know that about them. So that's another piece
and they can't find any kind of corroboration that they may have had any problems in their marriage. They just seem kind of like the perfect couple.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't help with the spouse theory.
Yeah. And then you've got this whole time, we jump chapters and we get Sasha's point of view. Mm-hmm. And so the Manor House, sitting from the glass house from a distance, you still have Sasha's doing yoga classes there, which is also kind of interesting.
Oh, because they convince Anna to let them move in.
Yes.
They do it in a very subtle way, but they end up taking over that house.
So that's how they end up there. And then Anna's like, oh, you should have yoga classes here. I have a place. Because, of course, Sasha's losing her yoga place. And then slowly but surely, Sasha and Ollie are like, Anna, you're like in our space. Can you not?
Can you imagine?
You get pushed out, pushed in your own house. I don't know. Yeah, so that's wild. We've got all this happening in the Manor House, and then there's Kitty, and this house is very interesting, and I still can't really picture the Manor House itself because the investigators come over, the detectives come over to have conversations with Ollie and Sasha, who they're up to something right away because they're always cross-referencing their stories with each other.
Yeah.
Now, granted, if people were sniffing around my place about a murder that happened, I would also probably want to talk to my husband and be like, oh my God, what did you say?
What did they ask you?
Yeah, I mean, bless his heart, his memory is a little short sometimes. So I'd probably just be worried about that. But the two of them are just always like, what did you say? Yeah. This is what you need to say. And then there's Kitty, who knows his house so well. And she's creeping around the areas where she knows that she can hear things, but she also is able to get into the walls.
Yeah, there's secret passages.
Yeah, and listen to all these things happening. So Kitty's starting to hear what Sasha and Ollie are telling the police, and it's just, there's something weird going on. When the police start poking around, Ollie can't be bothered. He's pissed. And I'm like, dude, your neighbor died. You're a writer. You sit at home all day. Relax. You're fine. So we have that all going. And honestly, at this point, it's just a couple small leads of oh, I saw a man, might have been a homeless man walking the other day here, and then he disappeared because apparently on this property, there's quite a few squatters every so often, and they can't get anywhere with that.
Yeah, and I kind of imagine that it seems like there's pathways to water, to the river.
Yes.
And so sometimes people will cut through their property that way.
Yes, and that's the interesting thing. Maybe they're having deja vu, or I've spoken of this on the podcast, which is interesting. But when we were in England, that was one thing I learned is that private property, your private property can back up into a footpath.
Oh.
And these footpaths are protected across England.
Oh, I didn't know that. I don't think we talked about that.
Okay, maybe. Well, deja vu. Here I am talking about it again. So, in my head, at least.
Maybe you were thinking about it when you read this.
I was like, wow, this is a great idea. I need to talk about this.
Footpath.
But it was really interesting because we were in the countryside, and there would just be places where people would pull over with their cars, and it's literally a footpath.
Wow.
And it's just, there might be farms and things going on, but it's just this protected area for the public to use. So I thought that was interesting because that's another thing. You live in a glass house on this peninsula with footpaths.
Much. Yeah, I would not be down with that. It sounds really cool and modern, but also very exposed, and I don't really like that.
And then they're like, oh, I saw a questionable man over here, and I saw a questionable man over here, and it's just that's just the people on the footpath. No. Yeah. But anyway, that's all. That's it. That's all they have. Mm-hmm. All they have at that point.
But even too as a reader, and so you're just kind of well, one of these players has to be.
Mm-hmm. So we have some questionable men, and then this other man all of a sudden shows up, and this is where we meet Patrick. How would you describe Patrick?
A leech?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. He shows up, and he's Tom and Nicole's old friend, who they had a falling out after they won the lottery because he wanted money.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like he has a hard time like holding down a job.
Yeah. It also gave the impression that even before they had money, he was always asking for help and handouts. And I think it just got to be so much where Nicole was like telling her husband, it's him or me at this point. We can't keep doing this. We're not helping him. We're just enabling.
Yeah. And he shows up in a Jaguar.
Yeah.
All of a sudden. Dressed fairly well by the description. Nice watch. Uh-huh. He's there to console Nicole. He heard the news. He feels terrible, but how did he hear? Pretty sure because Nicole posted on Facebook.
Yeah.
What a weird...
Yeah, she does weird things.
She didn't know how to cope, and so he comes to like, you get this, he's trying to look like the knight in shining armor, but because of the history with them, you're questioning him from the start. He's shady. Mm-hmm. You know he shouldn't be there, and he's definitely there what feels like for the wrong reason.
Totally.
And so what does Nicole do? Come on in, Patrick. Stay a while.
Let me give you a security.
Yeah, let me give you this thing that you can access everything in my house, and all the security cameras and the door. And I'm just like, oh my god.
But she's also all alone.
Yeah, in a glass house.
And he's a connection to her past. He's like the last connection to her husband.
Yeah. And
she's wanting someone to feel like to protect her.
This was the one time I got like actually frustrated with Nicole.
Yeah.
Because from the beginning, I just felt for her. And then she does this. And then Nicole is admitting things like, oh, I don't really know how to use the technology and the security. Like oh my God, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Shut your mouth.
You should be suspicious of everyone right now.
God bless. But so Patrick is there, and Sasha and Ollie don't like that.
No.
They don't like Patrick's presence. They want to learn more about him. They're just not happy that he's there. And Patrick does some more questionable things. We hear him arguing. Nicole wakes up to him arguing on the phone with someone. He's very weird about his phone. But also, it's like ringing at one point. And Nicole's like, oh, do you want me to get that? And I was like, I don't even do that with my husband.
No.
It was kind of a weird thing that Nicole did.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, questionable. And he's just kind of like, no, but he's making food for her. He is there.
He's really going above and beyond either because he has changed.
Yep.
Or to prove a point and like really put on a show.
Yes. And Patrick comes in and says that he and Tom had actually spoken a while before his death, and that Tom was depressed.
Yes.
And Nicole's like, time out, because one, Tom told me that he had no ties with you. Like, that was part of their agreement. Like, they're very open about that. And two, depressed? Like, no, he wasn't.
Yeah. But then that makes her start questioning everything.
Yes.
Like, wait a minute.
Was he honest with me?
Yeah.
And then it doesn't help we have Sadie's massage that's just always in the back of her head.
Yeah, now she's wondering, well, maybe there was another woman. And it's really actually really mean what he did playing with her mind like that.
Yeah. So then I think, honestly, for me, this feels like the first big plot twist is we get to learn more about Anna, the original Manor House owner, and Kitty.
Yeah.
And this is where things get like
wild.
Yeah. So we learn that not only did Sasha...
Spoiler.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't...
Big spoiler.
Not only did Sasha and Ollie push Anna to the point of like a little portion of her house, they pushed her out.
Yeah.
Completely. And I don't even know, what do they call the carriage house? The cottage? What do they call that? Like where the maid lives?
Yeah.
So what happens is the OG Kitty, the OG maid, disappears, leaves. Basically, Sasha and Ollie convince Anna that they need to go have an intervention with the OG Kitty because she's stealing things from them. She's doing all these things. And of course, Anna's like, I have been misplacing my stuff. I have been, having these issues. She's also like,
but I've known Kitty for so long, and maybe if we just talk to her. And they're like, no, we need to get her out of here. We need to get rid of her.
Yeah, so they go to can't remember what it's called, but the maid's house. at night one night, and they're like, you know, you're stealing from her, and Anna's just like, well, let's talk about it, blah blah blah, and then we have this whole scene, and then Kitty disappears, and Kitty's gone.
Yep, next day.
And Sasha and Ollie take this opportunity to shove Anna over into the little maid's house, and what does she do? She accepts it, and then
this is the craziest.
She takes the role of the maid, and then Ollie and Sasha start calling her Kitty.
And she allows it. And she's Kitty.
And this is when I wanted to check Anna in to some intensive therapy.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, she just let that go.
She thought it was cute to have like a nickname.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. You're reading this and you just start to feel like, because she's an older woman, you feel so sad for her and you want to protect her, but you want to shake her.
Oh my God.
How on earth do you let that happen?
I just cannot fathom. But she does redeem herself a bit.
Yeah. Because
she's a little bit smarter than we thought. She has this hypothesis that OG Kitty, we'll call her,
okay,
was killed by Sasha and Ollie. Like, they obviously had something to do with it. She feels like she saw them messing around that night in the dark. And then, interestingly enough, in the transition of Anna going to Kitty, Ollie finds her journal or knows that she's keeping a journal and convinces her to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Because he's not feeling good about it.
But I think they told Anna, new Kitty, that Kitty left.
Yes.
She was upset about being accused and left. But then when Anna is in that carriage house or whatever it's called, cleaning up, she sees that Kitty has left like all her medication, all her clothes, like things that if you're leaving, you need.
Yes. Oh, because OG Kitty was diabetic.
Yes. So like,
yes, that's what it was. Her insulin.
Yeah, she couldn't leave without it. No, she couldn't live without it.
Yep.
And so that's when Anna was like,
And Sasha's like on her hands and knees scrubbing the floor with like bleach.
Yes.
Like, I'm just ridding the house of her. Like,
and I understand she's been manipulated to a gross degree.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure she's scared that whatever has happened to OG Kitty can
happen to her. Yeah.
But this is her house. She still has freedom. She can leave the house. I would have immediately gone to the police. I mean, what can I do to get these people out of my house? I'm afraid something has happened. But she doesn't. She plays the long game.
Which, to her credit, I don't know how she did it to play the long game. Like, I would have done your solution, gone in, but she plays the long game. So Ollie convinced her to get rid of this journal because they're starting to get suspicious that, like, obviously she's picking up on things like that, yada, yada. So Kitty's like, Anna, Kitty, whatever, says, yeah, I got rid of it. But then she keeps another journal. And she's very intentional about this. She writes everything down in it. And this is when we are starting to think about what Sasha and Ollie are capable of. And I feel like this is when Kitty, Anna, starts to play her role because the detectives come poking around again. And she tells them I can't remember how she communicates that she needs to talk to them. She like hands them a note. They like go to interview all three, Sasha, Ollie, and Kitty. And she like hands them a note or something because she knows that they're listening. Yeah. She knows the house. She knows they're listening. And it's like, you know, like I need to speak with you or.
Yeah, something about like she alerts them. They can hear. They're listening, but we need to talk.
And trying to process where I am. And so what Kitty does, Anna Kitty, is she hands over the real journal.
Yes. That
she's been keeping. So this is when the police get that.
Yeah. And then she tells them that I'm Anna, I'm the owner. And they're kind of, this lady is cuckoo.
Oh yeah. She's crazy. She's someone who wants to get involved and is putting on this story. And so she drops that off. And then of course, in true fashion, They get the journal, and then we don't see that come up again for a while because they want to dismiss her, that she's cuckoo crazy. And then we learn a couple other things. So with Anna Kitty, she's gonna be her name now. She also has been like snooping with Ollie's novel he's writing.
Oh yeah.
She finds that there's a character written about her. She gets pissed. This is so petty, and I love it. She goes in there and she snips pieces of it and messes it all up. So she'll copy a paragraph here and drop it in like chapter 1 and like just mess up the whole thing. Because apparently like he doesn't reread stuff. Like she asked him about his writing process once, right?
But he knows the word count. So she makes sure that the word count stays the same, but she jumbles it all.
It was bad. And then we start trying to think of process where I am.
Well, I mean, at this point, we still don't know anything about Tom.
Yes.
Death. Poor Nicole. She's
Patrick's still there.
Yeah, and she's just very vulnerable.
Yep.
And at this point, Sasha and Ollie start saying out loud in the book, anyway, they're noticing Nicole in this state, and you pick up as the reader that they have their eyes on the Manor House.
Yes. They're poking around a little bit more. They're wanting to know, like, they're going out of their way to do nice things to try to eavesdrop and have conversation. And of course, Nicole's like, oh, did I leave that door open when Sasha and Ollie were standing there and then I had this conversation with the detectives? Like, of course, yeah, she did. So they're starting to hear these things and they're starting to get suspicious that the police are going to come poking around. And this is when Patrick, he starts to get really sketchy. He's arguing, he needs money, and Nicole gets really freaked out. And this is when...
Rightly so.
Yes, absolutely. And she calls the police, the detectives. Patrick has left. He needs to, like, take his car into the mechanic or something. So she calls them, and they start poking around with Patrick's background. So now it's shifted to Patrick.
Yeah. And
we learn that he is not successful. That Jaguar was rented. He didn't pay for it.
The watch is fake.
Mm-hmm. There's all this stuff that they start to figure out, like, he's owing all these people a bunch of money.
Yeah, and they seem to be bad people.
Yes.
People are going to hurt him.
Yes. And then we've got, let's see, Anna Kitty is feeling like when she feels very confident that Sasha and Ollie did kill the original Kitty. And she thinks she knows where the body is. It's, of course, this property has like a church with a graveyard.
Yeah.
Somewhere. And she believes it's there.
Of course.
And so she gets smart and somehow gets a little like security thing and she plants it and she's so ready to catch them. And they like go out one night and she's ready. Mm-hmm. And then she goes the next day to the security footage and there's nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
There's nothing.
But she knows. She just knows that they know she knows something, and she just feels it in her gut that they're going to do something very soon about moving something. If there is something, that they're going to move it soon because there's too many eyes. Because even though the police are looking at Patrick now with this renewed interest because of the money.
And he's MIA.
They still got a bad feeling about Sasha and Ollie. So they keep coming to them too. And Sasha and Ollie do not like that. Yeah.
So they're starting to get very nervous that they're starting to figure other things out. Like, we need to cover our past tracks, do all this stuff. Yeah. And then Patrick, actually, poor guy, RIP, he tends to be, he's actually useful because who did see them moving the body that night, because they did kill the original Kitty, was Patrick. Mm-hmm. And what does Patrick think? Oh, what an opportunity for me to get my money.
Well, you have to see it from his point of view. He sees they're living in a manor house.
Yep.
So, and they're the ones that sold Nicole and Tom the property to build. So he's thinking they must have money.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't know.
And they're going to want me to shut up.
Yep. So Patrick comes back. He starts his little blackmailing process. He's like, you're going to pay me this money, and I want it, like, I don't know if it was today or the next day. Like, he wants it fast because he needs it fast. And so, you know, Sasha and Ollie are like, oh, my God, now we have to deal with you. Mm-hmm. And they, like, come up with this plan, and they're whatever. And Ollie, like, goes off script.
Yeah.
Because you get that from Sasha's point of view, that this was not the plan.
Yeah, because they were able to stave him off for a little bit.
Yes.
Come back later.
Yes.
Let me talk to Sasha. We're going to figure out what we can do for you. Yeah, and they have a plan.
Yep, and then he comes back, and Ollie goes off script and kills him.
Yeah.
So now they have 2 bodies.
Yeah, and Sasha, for the first time, it feels, is, like, pissed at Ollie. And this is where she starts kind of questioning her allegiance to him.
Yep.
You get the sense that she's like, this guy's an idiot. I can't believe he roped me into this.
Oh, yeah. So you're starting to get that, and they move both bodies into, like, I picture it when you have on a property, you have your own sewer and whatnot, like down the big, like, drain thing. I don't know what you call it.
I don't know if you've ever seen it. I picture like those big sewer pipes, like you know where they were going. I pictured that because how else would they be able to fit a body in?
And obviously, this is where you get into that, like, woo, we're flying towards a resolution here. Things are really ramping up, and things speed up
crazy. Yeah. So the police at this point, because of Anna Kitty, they start, okay, this lady may be cuckoo, but let's see where the real kitty is. If there is a real kitty, let's see. And they try their hardest to track her down. They can't find anything, but they do get one relative, I think a sister. Mm-hmm. And they try to talk to the sister who seems like she lives on the outskirts of town in a bad place or whatever. Yeah. But she's just like, I really got no information for you. I haven't seen her in so many years.
Kitty wasn't close to their family, it seems.
And you get the impression from the sister that, like, Kitty thought she was better than everyone. Who does this remind you of? Yeah. Very wanting to improve her station in life. And she makes a comment about, like, just like her nephew. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh.
And the name,
who's this nephew? And it turns out, spoiler, that Ollie is Kitty's nephew. And so all of a sudden it all comes in. And
of course, this is when the detectives are not with each other.
Yes. Because
it's that typical scene of like, I'm trying to get a hold of you, I have something good. And then the other one's over here and you're just like, oh my God.
Exactly. It's a lot of like cross paths here. But yeah, so it all amps up there. And then now you realize why Kitty introduced Sasha to Anna. So it turns out Kitty wasn't so great after all. She really was also looking to make a buck, and they were kind of all in this plan together. But Ollie, being Ollie, he didn't want to share. And he saw a great opportunity to blame things on Kitty so that they can gain more trust from Anna and be able to do, ultimately,
get rid of the original Kitty and you've got more money.
Exactly. So he got very greedy. Now, all the while, Nicole has been freaked out because of the whole Patrick thing, and the police are looking for Patrick, and they still don't know where he is. Anna Kitty, she comforts Nicole, and Nicole trusts her. She sees something in her. She feels like they're kind of kindred spirits. And she asked Anna, like, will you come stay with me? I don't want to be alone.
And they don't know where Patrick is because obviously he's in the sewer, but they don't know that. Yeah. So she's freaked out because she's like, oh my God, I gave him the pin.
Yeah, I gave him, it's like, I imagine it like I'm wearing this stupid little thing.
Like he can still get into my house, and she's freaked out. And so it feels better to have Anna Kitty there.
And then Anna has to ask permission. Can you imagine? I just can't get over that. But she asked permission, and they don't want her to. But then they're also like, we have to do appearances. And so, yeah, sure you can. Are you working for her now? She's like, no, I'm just there to help. And I think at this point, that's when we start getting their perspective in the different chapters told from Tom. And I loved it, but I also hated it because it was like in bits and pieces. Like you'd get a little bit of Tom, and then it would be a few more chapters, and you're like, well, wait, let's get back to Tom.
And it's titled, every Tom chapter is Day of His Death with the time. So you're like, oh God.
Like you know something is coming, but
the day of his death was wild.
It really was, but like every time I was reading it, I was just kind of picturing, like
Yes, that's literally what it was. Each chapter was another, just like he's on a little game board and he's like, and that was the chapter. And you're like, okay, what the, and then, and you're like, get me, where's the end?
Because every moment of his day was so freaking innocent.
Oh, bless his heart. You know? He like wakes up at like 9:30 and he's like, what should I do today? And I'm just like,
I love my wife. You know, he's like,
she's at a country fair and she loves sheep and I'm going to have a cup of coffee. And
yeah, everything was just like so kind of boring, but really
you're like, someone killed this man?
I know. And it's like, he's so cute. And he's thinking about her and he's thinking about how like he doesn't really enjoy this kind of lavish lifestyle that they now have.
But it makes her happy and he's like, whatever,
and that's
I love
all
her.
I want to do. And then he talks about how like Nicole wants to lose weight and I think she's beautiful just the way she is. I mean, like this guy can't get any freaking sweeter. And so what I loved though was like all these things that seemed very like suspicious when they found his body. The bump on his head, the card in his pocket,
absolutely not.
The lipstick on the second coffee cup. All of it was innocent. And like I won't get into every single detail, but they were just so like you read it and then you're like, but wait a second then. Was it an accident? You start thinking maybe he wasn't murdered.
But the sweetest one that we have to get into is yes, how he got the bump on his head.
Yeah.
He goes to the door, there's a guy there, and you're like, oh my God, this is it. This is the murder. And then, nope. He's delivering what I picture is a large, like ceramic sheep. Because she loves sheep.
And so he was going to surprise her for her birthday. And then like the whole chapter is him thinking about where can I put the knife?
Literally, that portion is like a kid's TV show to me. Yes. The whole chapter is like, where should I put the sheep? Should I put it here? And you're like, no. And bless his heart, this is how he gets the bump on the head. He finds a great idea. Let me put it in the attic and gets the thing down and thunk.
Yeah.
Classic like attic scene.
The sad thing about that is I think because of that bump on his head,
where it really went downhill.
I think it hit him really hard, harder than he realized, and he had a concussion.
Like, yeah, legit bad concussion.
Yeah, because he's going about his day after that, but it's maybe about an hour or so later when suddenly he's starting to feel a little dizzy, he doesn't feel well, and he does have an interaction with who ends up becoming the killer. I don't know if we want to get there yet. But
he has an interaction with the other innocent guy.
Well, he ends up being innocent, but like the drifter guy. Which,
you think it's him. You're like, oh, shoot.
Yeah, because they do have an interaction where Tom sees that somebody's left like a tent or a backpack and a bunch of shit on his property. And he's just kind of annoyed. Like, I don't mind you passing through, but you can't sleep here. And so he finds the drifter. And this guy goes off on him, basically like, you this rich guy, and I'm just staying out here in the slum.
Yeah, like, I'm not bothering you.
Exactly. And so I think that's where he gets the stupid card from.
Yep.
Because I think he throws it at, or he finds it and he picks it up and just puts it in his pocket. But that guy ends up coming back. But I guess before we get there, I don't know, do you want to talk about what happened to Tom first? I just feel like because things were... We talk about Tom, and then we learn a little more about Ollie, and then we talk about Tom, and then we learn a little more about Sasha.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, it is. It does kind of go all over the place. And I think for me, when I was reading it, as much as I wanted to know about the Ollie-Sasha connection, I really was just like, poor Tom.
I liked his chapters.
I loved his chapters the most.
Yeah.
So, okay. So he's got that interaction with the drifter, and then he starts to feel bad. That he was like, maybe I was too
mean to him.
You're like, who am I? We all have trouble. It's like, I should help him. I mean, this guy, he can't get any nicer. But then we also, I don't know if it was before or after that. Oh, it is after that. Patrick shows up.
Yeah.
Because he's thinking for a moment that it's the drifter again.
Yes.
But Patrick shows up to the house and Tom is thinking about like, oh, I told Nicole I wasn't going to talk to him anymore. But they've been friends forever and he wants to help him. And in Patrick fashion, he's just there asking for more money. I got this deal. I know this. I can do that.
This investment. And it'll make you back all this money and blah, blah, blah.
And Tom is like, I've had enough.
Yeah, I've heard this story.
Yeah, I've heard this story too many times. I made a promise to Nicole and I'm putting my foot down. I'm not doing this anymore. And Patrick goes off on him and says hurtful things. And so then you're thinking, Patrick did it.
Oh, yeah.
But then he leaves.
Nope.
Okay.
Bye.
So, not Patrick.
And all the while, like, I don't remember how Tom got out. He's outside.
He's out by his doing around.
Yeah, he's just dinking around, and these people keep showing up at his house, and he's got this concussion, and he's just like, "Oh, who are you?"
Yeah, he's like, "I just can't wait for Nicole to come home."
And it's really sunny and hot, and he's like, "I just don't feel good. I'm gonna sit down." And then he's like,
"I'm gonna go sit by the pool." So
who's here now? Like,
yeah, and then the drifter comes back, and the drifters. And
so you're like, "Oh, it really is."
It really is the drifter, and I think, did he have a knife with him or something? He shows up.
He does have some sort of like questionable weapon, and Tom's like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, and then
but the drifter is actually like, being nice.
He is, and then Tom, before like they start another argument, whatever, Tom pretty much goes, "You know what? Before you say anything, I was in the wrong."
Yeah,
and it's like, where you know it is your property, but he goes into this big thing about like, "I'm really sorry, man." Da, da, da.
And he's like, "I don't feel good."
Yeah, and so now he's like kind of stumbling. And the drifter is just like, "You okay, man? Like, do you need anything?"
Yeah.
And I think
he's just like, "I need to lay down."
Yeah, I think I need to lay down or whatever. And so the drifter is like, "Maybe I'll just go." And
yeah, he like lays down on a lounge chair out by the pool, and the drifter leaves.
Yeah, and then he hears somebody again. My goodness, this man's day. He hears somebody again, and he's thinking it's the drifter again, or maybe it's Patrick to come back to ask for more money. But who is it?
It's Ollie.
It's Ollie.
Which he's glad, because Patrick's not feeling good at all at this point.
Yeah,
and he's
like his head is like pounding.
He can hardly tell who is coming up to him.
Yeah, his vision is so blurry.
And so he's like, "Oh, thank God it's Ollie. Like, Ollie, I really need help. Like, I don't feel good.
Yeah, Nicole should be home soon, but I think I might have a concussion."
Yeah.
And
Ollie's like, "Perfect. You did half the work for me, buddy."
Yeah. Pushes him into the pool. He goes face down. He's already like, he drowns.
Yep. Because he's just, that concussion was already too much for him. I don't even think
but then
Ollie has to do much.
No, he doesn't have to do much. But before Tom succumbs, he looks up, and not only is it Ollie, but Sasha is there too.
Yep.
And so they clearly planned it together, because they have had their eye on the glass house, because again, in fashion with them, they got greedy.
Yep.
Now, the way they describe the Manor House, even though it's this big, stately place, it's older. Mm-hmm. It's been around since the time. I mean, they have those secret rooms in the walls where they were built for priests, Catholic priests to hide, which is what, in the 1600s?
Yeah.
So it's a very old property. And they're seeing what they did with the glass house, and they like how it's so modern and young, and they want to live there.
Yeah.
And so they have this perfect opportunity with Ollie, which makes me wonder, though, if Ollie went over there with the intention of trying to kill Tom, or it was just,
I do wonder what his original plan was, because that was like,
he saw it.
It was like laid out for him, and he's like, "Oh, this is a great opportunity." But you knew he was up to something, so I am curious what that plan was. But mind you, while we're getting these flashbacks, the detectives are still in like two different places, haven't gotten a hold of each other, and I can't remember if it was the female detective or male detective. They show up because like Ollie's obviously up to something and killed the original kitty.
Yeah.
And this is like right when he flees.
Yes.
Because he takes all the secret passageways in the house.
It's the female cop. Because once she realizes or learns that Ollie was Kitty, the OG Kitty, the nephew, she goes, something ain't right.
Yeah.
So she goes to the
She's
house.
more like, you get the vibe, the other cop is fine, but she is like, "I'm not going to dismiss Kitty, Anna. I'm going to really listen to her." And so she's like, of course, can't get hold of the other one.
And so they obviously want to talk to Ollie a little more. And they go back to the house, in the Manor House, and they want to talk to Sasha and Ollie. And I forget exactly what happens initially. I mean, he's being kind of a dick. But then suddenly I think Sasha is realizing that the gig is up.
Yep. Sasha turns on him.
She goes, "Him. I have been suspicious of him. I think I know what he's been doing." And Ollie is just like, "The fuck?"
Yep.
And so he just...
And he goes down. He runs. He like goes under the house. He like knows these different ways. He like gets out somehow. And now he's gone. So the police are like, "Well, Patrick's gone," because they don't know where Patrick is yet. Ollie's gone now.
And it's nighttime. And we're like talking about like, I almost imagine it like a marsh.
Yes.
I know it's not a marsh, but like... tall grasses and rivers, and it's super dark, and there's not a lot of lights, and so they can't find him outside.
And Ollie gets this great idea of where should I hide, but the one place that would be the most obvious that they can't find me, which is the crime scene.
Yeah.
And
because he has Patrick's security tag. And he's like, duh, I can get in.
I'm just going to go to the glass house.
And meanwhile, at the glass house, Nicole is sitting there with Anna. And they're just kind of commiserating. And she's talking about, I can't believe that, like, I believed Patrick. And, you know, what do you think about this? And then I think Anna was looking at Nicole's phone or something. She was looking at something of Nicole's, and Nicole's like, oh, she catches her and is like, whoa, 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 what are you doing?
Yeah,
I not trust you either. And that's when Anna comes clean to her. It's like, listen, this might sound crazy, but this is what happened to me.
This is my story.
This is my story. I feel like I could trust you. You would understand. And also, I think Ollie and Sasha have something to do with your husband's death. Even though Patrick is kind of scary, I think it's them.
Yeah.
And so that's when Nicole is like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I try to put myself in Nicole's position, that if someone laid all of that out on me, she seemed pretty calm.
Yeah.
And just accepted it immediately and was like, oh.
Well, as she's living in a glass box on the same property as these people, like.
Yeah, like, oh, what do we do?
Oh, shoot, let's go to bed and think about this in the morning.
Yeah. And then it gets wild. And they're like, oh, well, let's put on our security system. I think I can figure,
Oh, maybe we should be in this glass box, just the two of us with no weapons. So let's work with the security system.
I imagine she was holding something like, almost like an iPad or whatever. And she's like, I think I figured out how to use it, because I think Patrick was trying to help her figure it out. And so they're looking at the system together. And that's when she realizes, oh, Patrick's thing is still turned on. And as they're trying to, like, shut down the house for the night, they see, like,
Patrick's back.
They're like, oh my God, Patrick's in the house. Like, what do we do? You know? And they figure out how to lock the house down so that once he's in, he can't get out. And so he ends up going into their gym.
Because there's a whole wing. And so, like, Ollie thinks that, like, oh, the two of them are not coming over here. Like, this is the safest place for me to go. And they're, like, watching this. I just picture, like,
like a beep, beep, beep.
The more modern version of I don't know how to pronounce it, the Mortars map or whatever. Marauders map from Harry Potter, and you see their footsteps. That's literally what I'm picturing, is Ollie just deep, 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 deep.
A little light. And so then he ends up going into the sauna. And
why?
And
he's hiding.
That's right.
He's
because
hiding. I can't remember.
Once they figure out that he's in the gym, they lock it. But then I think, like, some sort of sounds or lights happen in there, and it triggers it. It triggers it, and he's like, "Oh shit! Somebody might know I'm in here." So that's when he hides in the sauna.
Never hide in a sauna.
But she sees it, like, she can tell that that's where he is because he's got the little sensor on him.
The best part is it Anna goes, Can
you not?
Can you shut that down and then maybe crank it up a bit? Let's sweat it out.
And I imagine Nicole going, oh yeah, I could do that. And so they figure
it out. Picturing these two women who just come up with this most diabolical, torturous plan, but are like, oh, let's just press the buttons and see what happens.
And I imagine that there was a cup of teas on the side of the table while they're going, ooh, how do we do that? Oh yes. And so they were able to lock him in so that he can't open it from the inside. They lock him in the sauna, and they decide,
let's go to bed.
Let's crank it up and go to bed. And they fry him to death. They don't call the police and say, hey, we have someone.
No.
We caught him.
Nope. They're like, let's cook him like a rotisserie chicken and go to bed.
Yeah. And I think we forgot to say that they realized that it wasn't Patrick and that it was Ollie, because they could see on the camera.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't call the police, which is, I was thinking, oh, they're going to trap him in there and call the police.
Oh yeah, me too.
No, they decide we're going to kill him. And so they
do. The two most, like, vulnerable characters of the whole story.
Two unassuming women so they kill him, and then they go to bed.
Yep.
And they probably had some sort of talk before they went to bed, but they go to bed and get up the next morning, and they bury him somewhere. Nicole had some sort of plan, like she even had, like, these special boots on and everything, and she took his body somewhere. And this is where I wrote, like, this is the kicker.
Yeah.
They now know
They're playing the long game.
They are really, really playing the long game. Never find Patrick. The police never find Patrick. The police never find Ollie. And then they have nothing to take Sasha in.
Mm-hmm.
And so Nicole...
But Sasha's messed them both up so bad.
Yeah. And Nicole and Anna know that Sasha was a part of this. And so they go, okay, we know what to do. And they decide to play with her.
Yep. And this is when, all of a sudden, by the way, Nicole and Tom haven't had kids. They wanted to have kids. All of a sudden,
they were trying.
Nicole's like, I'm 1 day late. And but it could be the stress and all this stuff happening. So I'm going to wait until a little bit later to take this test.
I'm not going to get my hopes up because it would be like her last link to him. But then it turns out, surprise, surprise.
Yep.
She is pregnant. And so she says to Sasha, you know, I'm going to need someone to help me with my new baby.
Because Sasha has no yoga business.
Nope.
She lost Ollie.
And they're playing like
turmoil.
Oh my God, Sasha, like how horrible. You had no idea what kind of man this was.
You're the victim. But
you know what?
You were manipulated too.
Yeah. Us women, we're going to stick together. And I really could use help around the house. And
I'll pay you so well.
And so now Sasha becomes the maid, which is interesting. But, you know, they pay her really, really well. And Sasha is just thinking, my God, I am a maid at this point, but I got away with so much. They are so dumb.
Yes. And that's what she's just like,
so
they can't figure it out, these two. Like, no way.
I'm going to ride them for what I can, which is, you know, shows how dumb she is, because I would have been like, if I got away with this, I'm going to get out of Dodge. But she sticks around.
Plays around.
I mean, they do play the long game because she has the baby. When the baby is born, Nicole gives Sasha a credit card to use and says, you know what, you've been so wonderful and so helpful.
Go get yourself something
You need a vacation. Go buy yourself some clothes for this vacation. It's on me. Enjoy. When you come back, we'll be ready for work.
So then we go and you get the point of view, and Sasha like lands and she's feeling so refreshed, and oh my God, what a great vacation.
And she's like, you know, this really wasn't my intention to like do this, but you know what? She pays me so well and she treats me so good. And she shows up to the glass house, and the police are there waiting for her. And Nicole and Anna are there. And they're like, how could you? And Sasha's just sitting with all her bags. What? And you're like, you stole my credit card after everything we've done for you. Got all these fraudulent charges. Yeah. How dare you?
And to be stupid enough to go on a vacation for yourself.
Yeah.
Like
you didn't think that it was being tracked. And, you know, Sasha, to her credit, she's standing there and she's like, God damn, they got me good. Like, she almost respects what they did to her. And they put the handcuffs on her and take her away. And you think it's over there.
Yeah. You're like, oh, okay.
Wow.
We got a couple dead bodies. Yeah. They dealt with Sasha. Okay, great. Done.
Yeah. And you're just like, well, I guess Nicole will be fine. She clearly is a very shrewd woman after all, this unassuming lady, but so is Anna. And I'm like, wow, the things that these two ladies are going to get up to. And you think it's over there at that point. But then Nicole starts reflecting on her lottery win and her husband and the things that people will do. And you learn this story about Tom's grandma.
They didn't have a lot of family. Both of them orphaned, I believe, or
I think so. Yeah, they were just kind of.
And Tom's grandma like raised him, and they were very close. And grandma hated Nicole, but Nicole would go over every single week to her house to do her groceries, to do, you know, all these things, sit with her, get her meds ready, all this stuff. And grandma loved to get lottery tickets.
But she also loves, it seems, to tear Nicole apart.
Yes, oh yeah.
Call her
very
names, you know.
Blatant with that.
And Nicole would say things to Tom, but Tom was like, she's old.
She's like my old,
Like, can we just deal with it? And I think Nicole is just like, well, how long can this last? You know, but she is very upset that like Tom doesn't stand up for her more, but she loves Tom so much and knows this is all he has. So she deals with it. And so their tradition is every week the grandma makes Nicole buy lottery tickets, and they have to sit and watch the lottery numbers.
But of course, Grandma can't.
Yeah, she can't read it very well. And she's like, tell me like what the numbers are. And like every week, I forget what they had like a saying, whatever, but every week there was a no-go. But one week, that lottery ticket was the winner.
Every single number.
And it was Grandma's. And Nicole says, nope.
Yeah, they're saying that she says every week.
Yeah. They're saying, she's like, not this week, Grandma.
Okay, time to go to bed, Grandma. Let me just get rid of that lottery ticket, turn that off. We got to turn in.
Yeah. And Grandma's like, oh, maybe next week. And Nicole kills Grandma. She's the pillow, right? I think it was a pillow.
Yeah, she puts a pillow on her.
And then she goes home. And poor Tom, on his usual check on Grandma.
But no, it's Nicole has to convince Tom. That's the crazy part. Do you remember this? Nicole has to convince Tom, like, hey,
go check on
we should go check on Grandma.
That's right. I forgot.
She's like,
I was still so like,
she was like, hey, we should go over. And Tom's like, no, we don't need to. And she's like, no, we need to go check on Grandma now.
He goes and he finds Grandma dead. And I think she waits a couple of days and she's like, oh, Grandma's lottery ticket.
Oh, shoot. We didn't check.
Never got a chance to check. And then, oh my God, this must be Grandma from above.
Yeah, Tom's like, oh, she's taking care of me even when she's dead. And Nicole's like, yeah, she is.
And then Nicole's like, yeah, she is. And I mean, didn't see that coming.
No.
I didn't see that little twist.
I still like Nicole.
Me too. I don't know how old Grandma was, but she did sound pretty awful. Yeah. I don't condone murdering grandmas.
No.
Or anyone. But I still like Nicole.
Yeah. That was my favorite plot twist of the whole thing.
Same. My favorite parts were Tom, his perspective, his day, and the do nature of it. And then finding that out about Nicole. And then what they did to Sasha. I really, really loved that.
The long game there was good.
Yeah. I mean, it was wild and diabolical, but I loved it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That is The Manor House by Gilly MacMillon.
Which is crazy because you look at the thickness of this guy.
I know.
And I don't know if it's like you come off of fantasies and you think about how much happens in a thick fantasy book. And then you break down what happens in this book and you're just like, oh my gosh.
So much.
It's a lot.
So much has happened. She really laid out the foundation very quickly and very engaging. And again, I love how these kinds of books always have short chapters because it always makes you feel like, oh, that was fast.
And then you get done with someone's chapter and then you got to keep reading because you need to go back to their point of view because of course they just said something. So that was really nice. And like with Tom's chapters, he's introduced later on. So that's interesting because now you have a new person, a new point of view.
Yeah. And I wasn't expecting to get the dead person's point of view. So that was fun.
That's new.
Yeah.
But no, it was really good. I also, for me personally, and I don't know about you, any book, which is so funny because I was thinking about the mystery ones we've read and it was like, we did The Midnight Feast, which takes place in England.
Yeah.
And then we did None of This Is True, which is in England. And then we did this, which because we've read all British mystery authors.
I think the next one.
And the next one's in England too. But I love all mystery, wherever it is. But I'm not going to lie to you. I prefer the mystery books that are set in a different place because it is so interesting to me. Like you said, like when they introduced where this town was, like looking it up.
Yeah, I was Googling it. I was looking at the
doing all this stuff and like, oh, what's it like to live in a manor house with that history?
Yeah, I was just going to say maybe it's so appealing to us because it is foreign to us. There is more mystery because we don't know the location. We don't know the terrain. Whereas like you were talking about Long Island. I mean, that's fun because it's a different fun because, I know that. I know what that is. But when you don't, there's more mystery to it and an excitement and imagination for you as well. Because I'm sure there are things that I imagine that are not as stately as they actually are.
Oh, yeah.
But it's more fun.
You like to think it is.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was. And I'm looking at the back and like her author of what she knew and things like this. I can't remember exactly what else I have read, but I do remember I believe all of her books take place in England. Because like Lucy Foley, she's British, but like hers can kind of be all over the place. But yeah, I think hers are all in England somewhere. I can't remember for exactly, but anywho, after this, if you want more mystery, you're gonna have to wait a sec.
Yeah, because we're going back to Feyre, darling.
We gotta go back to Feyre.
We can't just leave her.
So,
which honestly, I am reading book 4 now, and I'm getting a little nervous because I'm not ready to leave them. Because I know I have one more,
and then
there's one that hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
But then you told me the other books in her series are not about them, and that kind of makes me sad. I don't know about you, but I get attached to certain characters and worlds. And
wait till you take your Throne of Glass journey eventually. You gotta
I'll do that.
Be ready and prepare for that.
What do you mean? Why?
Because you talk about getting attached to characters, you'll get attached. But
are they going to be taken from me? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying. I'm not going to tell you any of that. I'm just saying you're attached.
Got me nervous.
No. So next we are back to Akawar, which is a court of wings and ruin, which is ironic that it says Akawar because things get messy in this one. And then after that, we'll jump back into mystery with Good Bad Girl. I have to really think about that. For some reason, I want to say Good Girl, Bad Girl every time.
Same. Good Bad Girl.
Good Bad Girl by
Alice. And then we'll be back to Feyre with
the little Christmassy.
Yes, that's what I'm reading right now.
A Court of Frost and Starlight.
Yes. And then, we'll get to
That's a lot.
I can't remember all the
Next
titles.
is Akawar.
Exactly. Next is
Akawar.
So come back. And as usual, please contact us. Please send us comments. You can send us comments or DMs on Instagram. We're Bougie Book Pod. Kira has put together a TikTok for us.
Yeah.
She's so technology.
Not at all. I just spend too much time on TikTok.
I do too, but I don't know how to make them. So really love that. So yeah, share her videos because they're good. And I like when she makes them. And then share with a friend and give us recommendations. My hope is that I would really love to start a community of people talking about books. I think we're living in a world right now where things are really crazy.
Yeah.
No matter what side of the fence you live on. And I think it's just no better time than to kind of lose yourself in some books and talk about books. And I don't know.
I need someone. Yeah, I need more people. I'm we sit and talk about it. My girlfriends in Michigan, we will text about books, hey, what's a book you've read? And then some of my friends here, when we get together, but it's almost like I don't get to do it enough that when I do talk, I'm was that too much? Do I need to rein it in?
No, never.
Exactly. And so that's why it's I feel like there are a lot of people out there that do want to talk about books and have these conversations and things like that. And that's just what we want.
And it would be fun to someday have somebody else come and join us.
Yeah.
And if you're a writer, come and join us and tell us about your book. That would be a dream.
Yeah.
I would love that. Just more books, more reading, more imagination, less reality.
But anywho, to fantasy we go to get to our other world.
So come on back and keep reading.